Thank you, Ken. So, Rudy Lamone, he's really a Tar Heel. Went to North Carolina, is a musician, which I didn't know when I showed up here in 1965 to finish my undergraduate degree. And I think we met the next year when I was taking my MBA, taking an operations research course from Rudy. And during that time, I was a graduate assistant working for the then dean of the college, which was part of another college. Rudy was the first dean of the business school when it became an independent entity in the early 70s. And that's and he's always, you know, he's been an integral part of the Dingman Center for a long time, and he's always had that in him, and he had to become the first dean of the independent business school. So fast forward, so I take this course from Rudy, and he gives me a B in graduate school. So I wasn't too happy, and Rudy knows my brother, and I was telling my brother that Rudy gave me a B. And he said, "What did you do, get C's and everything else?" And we became very good friends with his wife Linda over the years, and have a lot of mutual friends in Annapolis. Rudy called me in the mid-70s to become part of his advisory council, which was quite new at that time. And of course, I said yes, and came down and saw the formation of the business school back at the other building. So then I leave First Boston and decide I want to try to do something different. Went up to the University of Rochester as dean of the Simon School, graduate school, and then came here. And I show up, and I have this parade of professors. I'm not going to name any names, although there were a lot of people here tonight that were here when I was, first of all, a student. Steve Carroll and Rudy Lamone, I had taken courses from both of them. And I had these people coming in, and they tell me the deal they have with Rudy. Just like an entrepreneur would, right? I have a deal with Tom McMillan, right, or Dan Mote, or Britt Kerwin. And after about a week of this, we had a faculty meeting, and I announced, anybody that thinks they have a deal with Rudy, you got 7 days to come see me. We can work this. I think that while he's most noted for his work as dean, of course he did a lot of work with the Entrepreneurship Center. And that's great. And when you look at somebody's resume, the most interesting thing to me is that it tells you what they've done, but it really doesn't tell you who they are. And so when I think about Rudy, I think about, well, who is this guy? And why is it that we all came here tonight? And the answer to me is part of this very long discussion about leadership, individual leadership, leadership of others. And in all of that, excuse me, if you don't have your own moral compass, whatever that is, in terms of your own definition of your own values, it isn't going to work. So that's partly the consistency of who you are and your makeup. And so I think with Rudy, one of the things that attracted me to him and his style, and I think to all of us, is that, sure, we all have our idiosyncrasies, except for Rudy, but we know who they are, and if you're consistent, at least you know who you're dealing with. And when somebody is reliable and honest about what they think, it makes everything a little easier. And so when you think about what the example is, or should be for all of us, when we're trying to manage other people or run something, if you're not able to do that, you're not going to get much done. And that's the difference in part between takers and givers. And Rudy is clearly a giver, and if you're a taker, it can never work in the long run. And the other thing about entrepreneurship is that I always think of people sometimes when I meet them, what would happen if we threw them in the jungle? Do you think they'd ever get out? And I think with Rudy, if you threw him in the jungle, he'd get out a little slower these days with his back, but I don't know how he'd get out, but he'd get out. And so I over all of these years, which now is 40 years that we've known each other, I could not be here, Rudy. And I want to thank you for all you've done, not only for the school and the university, but for the students and all of us that worked for you and attended this place, because it is your heart and your compass that was a role model, at least for me. So thank you for all you've done.